I just moved into a beautiful new studio here in Barcelona, and you can see that some parts are getting there and some other parts still have work to be done and still a lot of things to unpack. But as I am unpacking, I am realizing that this year marks 10 years that I've been living in Barcelona and also 10 years working as an illustrator. So this video is kind of a celebration of some of the projects I've been so lucky to work on, because at the end of the day, if you are in the day-to-day of life and work, it's easy to forget some of the things you have accomplished. In the past 10 years, I've worked on many, many beautiful projects, made some beautiful products, and I'm very grateful for making a living playing with colors. I also wanted to show you in this video some of the drawings I made 10 years ago. Honestly, they are not great, and it's a bit embarrassing to show them, but I still wanted to show them to you for two reasons. The first one is that it's a gentle reminder that everybody starts somewhere. And the second reason is that I'm very grateful for the Natalie of 10 years ago, who made those drawings, who did not overthink as much as now, who just didn't stop painting, even though the drawings were just not great. So no, I'm not really embarrassed to show you these drawings. On the contrary, I'm quite proud of them. So as you can see here, I'm trying to paint some birds. I chose a very flat paper and very thin. Oof, look at these robins. This one I think it's quite cute still. And there's this toucan that I still quite like. I was also making some experimentations with watercolor lettering and calligraphy. This is one that I still quite like. I've had it in my shop for many years as a print and as like a greeting card for any occasion. And this one was an experimentation with silhouettes, women's silhouette. And it's funny because a few years after I made that drawing, a publisher contacted me to have this drawing on a book cover. So you never know what will happen with your drawings. You can make something that you love right now just for the fun of it. And then a few years from now, someone can contact you to license your drawings on top of some products. Here I am just having fun with colors and just inspired by the sea and by corals. Dandelion, I quite still like this one. And this is the drawing that I made with black ink on white paper, and I changed the colors in Photoshop, and it became a very beautiful notebook that I sold in my shop for a few years. And for this one, a few years after making that drawing, a wine seller contacted me to license this drawing on top of one or of their wine bottles. And this one is my very first paid illustration project, illustration lettering. So it was for a magazine from the US, and I think they found me on Behance. And they wanted some watercolor lettering. I did a lot of tryouts. I had no idea how to work. I didn't have a process. And it was a bit of just figuring things out as I went. And these are the final illustrations that I sent out. So after working on some months of experimentations on several drawings, I had the random idea one day to gather all these drawings and make a calendar out of them. So at first it was a gift for my dad, and I had the idea of uploading it online and putting it on Etsy, and that's how I started having my first sales on the platform, and I was so proud of it. At the time, I also applied for an illustrator job that a friend of mine sent me. I got the job and I worked on some beautiful products with watercolor, and I learned a lot about how to make products and the process of all this. I am very grateful for that first job that I had. I worked on different collections of products and also on a magazine that they were launching with some handmade lettering that I did. And I was also very happy working on both illustration and graphic design, layout design on this magazine specifically. I have studied graphic design originally, so it was also nice to work on some aesthetic layouts for this magazine. So this is an illustrated branding identity that I did for Laetitia from the blog Elosis et Megara. I think she found me on Instagram, and I was super happy to work on this branding inspired by nature, by ferns like everywhere. It was really a rewarding project. For this one, I was contacted by a woman who was launching some jams and chutneys, and she wanted illustrations of the different fruits that were inside the jams and some of the pairings. The same year, I did my first ever market. I only have a picture of my booth the way it was. I had my tote bags, my prints, my cards. I was super excited and super nervous and comparing myself with everyone who was there. And of course, the story I had in my head was that everybody except myself had everything figured out and was super experienced in markets. The year after that, I was still working at Lovely Streets, Mr. Wonderful, and I worked on this beautiful project, which was a collaboration with Birchbos. So it was like a beauty box with some products inside. So you had some makeup, and the whole box was on the theme of summer. So I did all of these illustrations in watercolor on the theme of summer, going to the beach, traveling, surfing. So this is a project that I did for the brand Bear's Fruit, which is a kombucha brand made with fruits. And they are making some unusual combinations of, for example, apple and ginger and cinnamon, blueberry lavender. This is the main pattern of all the fruits together. Pineapple and mint, strawberry, rosemary, and these are all the fruits together. And also there was strawberry jalapeno. This one is also a beautiful project that I worked on for Dior. They contacted me to create some illustrations inspired by their perfumes and by the region of Provence. And I also was in charge of production and printing process with a printer that I was working with. Next one is a project that I did over the course of several months for Evaneos, which is a travel agency based in France. At that time, I had refined my process of how to work with clients, and I'm still working like this at the moment. So first we do a mood board, which could be in Pinterest, or they send me images. Then based on those images, I will create a black and white line sketch, then a colored sketch, and then we have the final illustration. Here I worked with watercolor and gouache. I worked on many different travel destinations that they were advertising, and they used the illustrations on their website. So there was Tanzania, Namibia, Morocco, Costa Rica, etc., etc. Next is a beautiful project that I worked on a few years ago for the tourist office of Zurich in Barcelona. So Sandra contacted me to create an illustrated map inspired of Zurich in summer, and the places that were featured in this map were chosen by Elka Mocker, who had gone to Zurich earlier that year to choose all the places. And I was lucky enough to also go to Zurich for a few days, and a fully guided experience where I could just take some inspiration and then draw all the places. This one is the very first illustrated book I worked on for Edition Solar in Paris. And they contacted me to create all the illustrations and also all of the layout and design of the book. That was a lot of work, but very gratifying. That was 192 pages, and every page was illustrated and had a different kind of layout according to the different um, kind of activities that were in the book. But it's like grown up activities. Grown up, I mean, I don't mean that there's anything spicy in it, but just that it's not made for kids. This is a memory game, and I did the illustrations for this game actually a couple years prior to having this game between in my hands. The founder of the company saw my illustrations at a craft fair, at an art fair, and yeah, they contacted me to license these illustrations on this game. So it's a beautifully designed game, like all of the games that they are producing, with a lot of details, and they have an eye for sustainability. Also, all of their games are made of wood or cardboard. And my illustrations also went on top of kaleidoscopes and mini puzzles. I'm actually working for them at the moment and finishing up a puzzle of 1,000 pieces. So I'm very excited about that as well. I also worked on some beautiful illustrations inspired by the Provence for L'Occitane en Provence, which is like a famous skincare brand. So I did three illustrations, one of the calanque, one of the lavender fields, and one of an imaginary square in a village. That same year, I was very lucky to work on another game for kids, this time for a brand called Diset, and it's about these habitats. So I worked on the ocean, Arctic, the savanna, the forests, the jungle, and the desert. And you also had some cards with all the animals that live in these habitats. So you had the mom and then the baby, and you could match the cards. This is a very complete game where you also had an illustrated map where all the animals are placed according to where they live. This one is the second book from the series that I worked on for Edition Solar. This one is about going slow, so about nature, all in my area of expertise. So I had a lot of fun working on that project and making all of the illustrations and the design and layout for this book. I had a lot of fun on this project as well, which was doing hand letterings with watercolor and inks. So the book was already published in English, and I received just a document with the translated quotes in French, and I had to write them in French in the same style as the author did. So, very expressive letterings. The book is very interesting. It's about how to discover your own power into knowing your story, the story of your ancestors, of your parents, of your grandparents, what they have gone through, and also acknowledge society's dynamics and how they influence us and how we behave. This one is a project I worked on during lockdown. I remember it vividly. This is the result of the animation that they did from the static illustrations. I was going through a difficult time at that moment, and I'm not going to go into details right now, but I just had to work on my boundaries and on how to assertively communicate them and communicate when I am not feeling comfortable without mm, being afraid of how the other person will react, or being afraid of what I'm going to lose. Because in the end, what I'm losing by not expressing how I feel is myself. I was not expecting talking about that right now, but I mean, okay, let's roll for it. So also in 2020, I started working with Petite Salamandre. This is a magazine that goes out every 2 months, and I've been working on many issues now. These were the first few illustrations that I did for these two spreads. So you always have these two characters, which are named Pat and Moustache, and they are exploring nature, collecting flowers, watching birds and insects. It's just so cute. I am so grateful for working with this magazine. I always have a lot of fun drawing the characters and all the elements. Also, the person I'm in contact with for these pages is just the nicest person. The team is always super grateful. They are always like thanking me for my work, for my amazing work. They always say they like it so much. And it's just, just very, very gratifying to work with people like this. Look at them. Look at the bunnies. They're so cute. So here they are at the beach, collecting some shells and making smoothies and going on hikes with a fan. At first, I was working in traditional, so in watercolor on paper, but then at that moment, I started switching to working on the iPad with digital watercolor. So I found some very nice brushes that were quite realistic, and they made me save a lot of time. I love it because also I'm feeling every time more comfortable with the characters and with the scenes that I'm working on. Next one is the last one of these series of like grown up notebooks of activities. So it's about good vibes and how to raise your vibration and just be basically happier. So I did the same thing as for the two other books. I did all of the illustrations and then all of the layout and the design of the book. Next is a project for Clairefontaine, which is a stationery brand from France. And I did these illustrations like years ago, and now they wanted them for some planner covers. A couple years ago, I worked on this collection with Lilipinso, which is also a French brand specialized in kids decoration. So I remember in 2018, I went to Maison et Objet, which is like a trade show specialized in beautiful design objects. And this brand had a booth there. And I remember vividly thinking to myself, I really need to work with this brand and work on a collection with them. So I contacted them a few months before starting on the collection, and they actually replied super quick, saying that they would be super excited to work on a collection with me, that they had thought about me for working with them. And we worked on a beautiful world map with all of the animals of the world. We worked on some wall stickers and prints focusing on regions of the world and the animals that live in them. So I worked on this book last year with Solar Edition again. And for this one, I did all the chapter illustrations and also the design of the book. So the book is about ecological anxiety. I don't know if you have heard of the term, but it's about like the sense of doom that you feel when you think about climate change and the environment, and that things are just not looking so great, basically. So the author gives us some clues on how to deal with that. And I'm showing this one like this because I haven't received yet my advanced copies of this book. I've been working on that for the whole year of 2023, and I'm so happy of how it turned out. The story of this project is actually also quite fun because a couple years ago I went to the fair of Bologna, which is the biggest children book fair in the world. And I went with my portfolio and really wanted to speak with that publisher because they are making like exquisite books. And I had sent them my portfolio maybe a couple times, I don't remember, but I never had a reply. I thought, okay, it's okay, they are busy, everybody's busy. So when I'm preparing myself to go to the fair and I'm studying the map of where all the publishers are and studying the route of which publishers I want to visit, I had Mosquito Books on my list. And I'm going there with my portfolio in my hands, and I'm introducing myself to the editor, Mia. And basically, she just opens my portfolio and falls in love with my drawings and says, we have to do a book together. I'm very excited about that. I'm going to write you when we are back from Bologna. And that's it. So, the moral of the story is even if you received a no, you can always try again. And the last project that I want to talk about today is one that I did for Mediolanum, which is a bank. And I did some map illustrations for their website of several cities of the world. So Paris, Berlin, Copenhagen, and Oslo. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked seeing a bit of my journey as an illustrator. Let me know in the comments which project you liked the best and if there is one that you would like me to talk more about. Okay, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.